How you doing? Thank you. Glad to be back. All right, so we got a few people signing in. They'll be in here in a sec. We're going to go ahead and kick off. So thank you all for coming out this evening. My name is John Houseal. We're with the planning consulting firm Houseal-Lavigne out of Chicago, and we've been working with the El Paso County in preparation of the El Paso County Master Plan or Comprehensive Plan. With me is Sean Tapia. He's going to be helping out this evening, running some of the tech. And throughout the audience, you've got residents from different parts of the county. You've got some staff here from the county. You've got members of different boards and commissions, so it's a pretty good mix. We're also running this evening on Facebook Live. So the interactive polling and questions that you will be responding to in real time. Anybody who's out in the county that wants to participate, their results will be coming up on the screen just as if they're sitting in the room. So we may have a lot more participation than just the people who are physically here. The nice thing about this tech is when your study area is 2,100 square miles, this affords people the ability to participate no matter where they are in the county, as opposed to expecting everybody to come out this evening. So again, we've got a program here. We won't keep you past probably 11:30 tonight. No, I'm just kidding, maybe a couple hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. And what we're trying to do at this point is we're going to be working on the vision, the goals, and the objectives. So we'll go real quickly into the purpose of this evening's workshop. So we're going to be, to ensure the purpose of this workshop, again, is to review the different vision for 10 different themed areas for the comprehensive plan, and to begin to identify what are the different objectives or the different things that we can do to help achieve progress in these different areas. Over the last, say, 6 months or so, how many people here have participated in a workshop or an interview or a town hall or something like that? Raise your hands. Okay, I'd say about a third of you. We've engaged about 3,600 people so far across the county in the last 6 months. So again, it's a pretty robust participation so far, and we're not even halfway through the project yet. So we hope to get a lot more people than that. Participation is always a challenge, but we want to make sure we have a representative voice. So the plan has to be your plan. All right, it's not county staff's, it's not ours, it's not elected officials. If the plan isn't reflective of the priorities and aspirations of the residents and business owners, then what's the point? But in the long run, it has to be a plan reflective of this community, the community being El Paso County. The importance of the plan at this point in time and why the county is doing this is over the next 20 to 30 years, you're expected to grow by several 100,000 people, okay? Those are the projections. Not something you want to do on the fly, dealing with that. You want a plan in place so you can say, if we're going to get growth, it needs to go here, it needs to be of this quality, it needs to be of this character. We don't want any more growth over here. This area is very environmentally important to us. We need to protect that area. Water is a precious resource. How are we going to plan for that as the population begins to grow? Can we maintain infrastructure so all areas of the county are appropriately served as new population comes in? But we need to make sure that the El Paso now, even if it changes going forward, is still reflective of the desired character of what you want it to be as it continues to grow. But there are a lot of people that are going to be moving into the area. Colorado is a very attractive place. It's booming in the country. El Paso County and the Colorado Springs area is booming as well. And the county wants to make sure that it is as proactive as possible, so as change and growth and development happens, it happens in a manner that reinforces the quality of the county, doesn't detract from the quality of the county. And that's a big undertaking. And that's what this plan is going to do. It's not regulatory, it's not zoning, it doesn't dictate what you can and can't do. It's not a detailed infrastructure plan or capital improvement plan. It's a policy document. It's a foundation for future decision making. So if a developer were to come in the future and come to the county for approval and the county said, you know what, this is not at all consistent with our plan, that developer's going to have a real hard time getting approval, okay? If there's areas of the county that we think need to be protected, this plan should help provide a foundation for that decision to say, hey, listen, this is an area that's very important to us. So any development that may take place on the fringes have to utilize sustainability best practices and conservation design best practices for development, so we have as minimal footprint as humanly possible in this area. But we have to be proactive about what is important to the county, and that's what this plan is for. And that's what this evening's workshop is for. We're going to be going over 10 different, again, priority areas. We didn't just create these out of thin air. The 36,000 people that we've worked with over the last 6 months, we've had workshops and said, what is most important to you? What do you think are the top priorities facing the county? If you were in charge and calling the shots, what projects would you undertake to make the county better? What do you think is best about El Paso County that we need to protect going forward? These are just some of the questions we've asked thousands of people over the last 6 months. From those answers, things fell pretty neatly into 10 different categories that are areas of importance to county residents. So we're going to begin looking at some of the policies we're beginning to craft. Again, we're just at the beginning stages. This is not the draft plan, but we're beginning to formulate recommendations or policy objectives underneath these 10 areas. So we're going to talk about that this evening. So a vision, we talked about this. A vision is aspirational. It's what we want to be. What do we want to be like in 10 or 20 years? We have to make sure that the vision for our community is reflected in this plan, and this is part of what we're going to be getting at this evening and what we've used to mine all the input we've gotten with the thousands of people so far. A goal, you may never achieve a goal. A goal may be something you strive for, okay? So my goal might be to run a sub 3-hour marathon, okay? That might be my goal. My objectives might be to be running 15 miles by April 15th. Or another goal might be to drop 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, maybe a little more in the next 6 months. But a goal, I may try to run that fast. I may never achieve it, but it's a goal of something I can work toward. There are objectives that can be undertaken and achieved to move toward a goal, but a goal may never ultimately be achieved. It might be, it might not be. So we want to begin to formulate goals for the comprehensive master plan and objectives that can help move the needle toward those goals as an entire county. So we want to get you used to keypad polling or the smartphone polling. So right now, if you haven't already, get out your phone, go to your web browser, and in the address bar, type in polev.com/HLplanning962. All right, so do that right now on your phone. Should be pretty easy. We did this in Grand Junction about a month ago. Had about 160 people there, and worked flawlessly. We do this all over. It should be pretty straightforward. If you don't have a smartphone, that's okay. We have hard copy papers. You should have a pen. If you want to, as we participate over the course of the evening, write your answers down on your paper. We'll collect those and tabulate those as well. And you can always just raise your hand as we go through the workshop. So let me know when everybody's got this typed in. All right? So I'm going to go to the next one then. All right, so people have already put this in here? Okay, so what you're going to see on the screen right now, it says in one word, describe what El Paso County will be known for in the future. So use your phone, type in one word, hit submit, and that word will go up here on the screen. If you like a word that somebody else already has, you can type in the same one, that word gets bigger. So the more times a person or people type in the same word, it gets bigger and bigger. A new word added will go up on the screen. So just take a couple minutes, type the one word that in the future you want El Paso County to be known for one thing. What is that one thing? Take a few minutes to type that up and see what words you come up with. Funny story, we did this at an art museum in Springfield, Missouri. And one of the things they're known for supposedly is cashew chicken. And so the first person typed in cashew chicken. And he went up as 2 words. So cashew was over here and like chicken was over here. And we had several, it was a real big turnout. And as people came in, they saw chicken and thought it was funny. So they voted for it. And at the end of the night, chicken was one of the biggest words up on the screen. So. The other thing they're known for is Brad Pitt is from there. So Pitt and chicken were big words and not exactly the words we were going for. Yeah, right. It's a vision, I guess. I don't want to imagine the marketing theme around those words. But. So as you can see, just from what's up there so far, some of these things, growth, lifestyle, visionary, beautiful, outdoors, desirable. But then you can see those are all positive attributes. But then you see something up here, you see homelessness as a word. So Hopefully El Paso County in the future won't be known for that. It might be an issue right now. Transformational, diversity, booming. Hopefully it won't be known as being a restrictive place. So lifestyle seems to be a big one. Growth, visionary, and beautiful seem to be pretty big. All right? Bad is up there. Hopefully it's not known to be bad going forward. Hopefully we can get a little bit more proactively visionary this evening than that. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next question. This is just to get you used to voting, okay? The next one is a ranking scale type of a question where we want you to rank your Colorado favorite sports team from first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Next to, if you click on that sport team logo, you'll see a little arrow up, down, and you can hit that up or down to move it up and down the scale you want. When you have them arranged how you want, hit submit. And we'll see how you rank your sports teams in Colorado. Some of the questions that we asked tonight are going to be ranking, so we want you to get used to ranking questions. Nah, based on results from across the country, no.
Based on last weekend's performance?
Yeah, I know. We're from Chicago. It's brutal there, so. And it is interesting, though, from around the country, no matter how good this type of team is doing, soccer is always ranked last. We're just not a soccer nation.
Well, we do have a soccer.
Yeah, yeah. See? Oh, we do have a soccer. Yeah, I know. But there's a while in Chicago where the Fire was the only team doing well, and they were still ranked last. So it's kind of interesting. So again, there's one of the things we're going to be doing throughout the evening is we're going to be asking you to rank some preliminary objectives. We're going to be talking about a vision or theme or a goal. You're going to let us know how important you think that is in the overall scheme of things. And then we're going to be identifying 4 or 5. Oh, look at that enthusiastic participation. Broncos number 1. And then we're going to be talking a little bit later about ranking some potential goals. I was telling Sean, I listen to audiobooks when I travel, and I was listening to a book about some post-apocalyptic EMP went off or whatever, and this band of people was going from Texas up to Canada, just working their way across the country. And one night they camp out by that horse statue by the Denver airport, and there's like 4 pages in the book where they just sit around ripping on the statue as they eat around a fire. It was very funny. I thought it was hilarious. So anyway, that's how you do the ranking questions. So you can see there the Broncos, and consistent with every other city in the United States, soccer is pulling up last. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start talking about the 10 different themes, and whether these will manifest as 10 of the chapters in the plan, each chapter, or some of these might be folded into one another. So what I want you to do is, so the theme is land use and development. It's going to be a big deal moving forward. If this county is going to see the influx of several 100,000 people, that's new development, that's going to be changes in land use, that's a big deal. So we have to begin to establish what are some of the baseline vision for that or themes, and what are some potential goals we can begin working on. And if we can get those framed, then we can look at the detailed actions we need to take to accommodate that going forward. So the theme is land use and development for this one, and the vision statement or the theme statement is to manage growth, to ensure a variety of compatible land uses that preserve all the character areas of the county. When you have a study area that's over 2,100 square miles, you represent just about every type of ecological system. You go from mountains to plains to deserts to pine forests. It's a pretty diverse area. You go from very urban to rural to ranch to environmental to military. It's broad. So the plan going forward is going to have to begin to reflect those existing character areas. So again, the vision theme is to manage growth, to ensure a variety of compatible land uses that preserve all the different character areas of the county. So this as a theme in the plan, is this very important or most important? 5, or really not that important or not applicable? 1. And again, this is where the people participating on Facebook Live over the entire county, their votes will show up on here as well. All right, so overwhelmingly people have voted this number 5 very important, the most important thing. 37 people, 4 people for number 4, 2 for number 3, 1 for 2. I don't like to call anybody out, but sometimes I do anyway. So real quick, somebody who voted this as a 5 is one of the most important things. Why do they think land use and development is one of the most important things we have to address going forward? Anybody? I'll call on people if you don't raise your hand. So, go ahead. Yeah.
Why I think it's important?
Yeah.
Well, because tourism is a really big impact on the state.
Right.
We got to make sure that tourism maintains its importance.
Right. That's really an insightful thing. What he mentioned was that tourism is very important to this state. And from the perspective of tourism, we have to make sure that it remains an important, viable thing. Every state for cities and counties that require to have a comprehensive plan or a master plan like we're doing, or the one Colorado Springs just did, in the state of Colorado, you have to address tourism. In other states, you don't. Every state's a little different. In Colorado, you do. It's unique. And the reason being is it's so important to the state that if the state's going to go all in on tourism, they want the cities and the counties to as well, because they think if everybody down the food chain addresses it, it's the best shot for it to be robust. So not knowing what the state requirements are, that was a very insightful comment. You're right. Tourism is hugely important. This plan will have to address it. Yeah. Anybody who also rated this is pretty high? Yeah.
Just throughout the county, that's even in Colorado Springs there, so these fully contained neighborhoods.
Right.
There's almost nowhere that like you're within, say, like a 10 or 15-minute walk of the essentials of life.
Right.
So we all have to have a car, we all drive excessively.
Right.
And like it just, I think we all want to be able to have things that are close enough to home that you can have a problem like it is in Chicago.
Right.
There's a proper neighborhood.
Right.
Develop that and plan for it.
Right. Again, another really insightful comment was 10 years ago when we did this and we said, what's the most important thing to where you want to live? Walkability was not on the list of the top 50 things. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. Now it's almost always 1, 2, or 3, which is remarkable. The interesting thing about El Paso County, if you have people who are desiring to live in the antithesis of that, they want the large lots, they want the wooded areas, they don't want to be close to commercial, and they don't mind if they have to drive a couple times a week someplace far away. Other people that are come here, and in fact, a lot of the people that might be moving here want the option of, do we have a more urban environment that might be walkable or connected bike-wise to paths, to restaurants or shopping, where they could still drive if they wanted to, but they wouldn't have to drive. If they didn't have to, they could still get around. So part of this is there going to be different types of land use and character in different areas of the county? It's going to have to be, it's so big, being respectful of what's there now. But a lot of people are going to be wanting that type of development, but a lot of people are also going to be wanting something exactly opposite of that. And the county will have to provide both. That's very good. Yes, sir.
Hi, Steve
Yeah.
retired professional planner. I should know better than to be here. But anyway, thanks a lot for everybody who came out tonight. I noticed one thing that's not here under economic development is providing economic stimulus funds, like the $14 million that the county executives decided it was a good idea to pay to a company that was going to come here anyway.
Right.
And not only that, here's a warehouse occupying some of the most prime development land in the county along Interquest Parkway. I have real issues with that. I'm wondering if this plan is going to address that.
Absolutely. So thanks for that. So again, a couple of things here we'll unpack. One was economic development related. One of the entire themes, which will be a chapter in the plan, is economic development. Related to, all of these things are related. A couple of things. When you talk about utilizing economic development funds to an incentive to a business that might have come here anyway, and the issue of that. The other thing you mentioned was the fact that development taking place in an area where that type of development shouldn't have taken place. That's a land use issue. So yes, this plan will very much be addressing that. And we're going to be talking about economic development a little bit later as another chapter, or as another issue. Okay, so one person ranked this as a 2, a couple of people as a 3. Who ranked this as maybe a less important thing? Who didn't give it a 4 or 5? Who's that brave soul that's going to raise their hand and say why they gave it a 2 or a 3? Anybody? Yeah, go ahead. I can just repeat what you want to say if you want to.
No, the reason I did, I'm not comfortable with planning the way it's done because it tends to be a metro, and I actually have a ranch. You get people that try to come out and buy 35, 50 acres around us.
Right.
Then they want the metro planning to take over for them. And actually, it's an intrusion on those of us that do farming, raise cattle, things of that nature. And so that's my concern. I actually see a situation where El Paso County at some point probably needs a metro planning and a rural, because we are totally different and some of the rules that are brought out in my direction, they're very uncomfortable
They
and
don't
an
apply.
intrusion. They
Right,
don't apply at
right,
all.
right.
Then you get people upset, and
Right.
it causes problems.
Right.
So that's why I put that. I'm
Okay.
just,
No, that's
just not
good.
comfortable. In town, I'd do a 5. Where
Right.
I'm at, I'm doing a 2.
Right. No, that's good. So again, planning has to address both the developed or more urban areas and the more rural by design rural areas and the conservation areas where we don't want anything to take place. Like I said, this isn't a city we're talking about. This is an enormous planning area. The reason that I think this plan is so important is we have to identify those areas that we want to be ranch or large acreage, no development, no urban development, none of that sort of thing. So this will provide for both, because what we don't want to do, the county does not want to be back on its heels, reacting to every development proposal that comes at them if it's in a place we don't want it. We want to be a bit more proactive to say, hey, you know what? We spent 2 years thinking about this. We don't want that type of development over here. All right? We want to preserve that rural, ranchy character of life. You want to do what you're proposing? We have a place for that. It's way over here. But we have to sort of get out ahead of it so we can guide it as it comes, as opposed to taking what we get. But you're exactly right. We can't jeopardize those different areas of the county. We want that diversity of different place types. So it's a good question. All right, so real quick, we're going to go then to the next slide. Don't vote on this yet. I'll tell you when to vote. Let me read these off, okay? I'm going to be like a school teacher. Don't do anything until I tell you. So these are potential goals that will be underneath here. So when we do the plan, we'll have a vision, we'll have goals, we'll have detailed objectives. Then for each objective, series of recommendations and plans and graphics and strategies. And so this is just some of the things that can move toward that appropriate land use program. Ensure compatibility with established character and infrastructure capacity. Coordinate context-sensitive annexation and growth strategies with the municipalities that exist in the county. Encourage a range of development types to support a range or a variety of uses. Continue to encourage policies to ensure that development pays for itself. So as development happens, the cost of that doesn't burden residents, okay? The developers pay for that. And then other, if you vote for other, on your paper, write down what your answer is. So like the voting of your sports team, rank these in terms of what you think is the most important as we begin to address land use and development. Is it annexation? Is it context-sensitive design? Is it infrastructure? Is it something we don't have up there? Take a few minutes and move these around. And these will change positions as people vote. And again, if you have something that you want us to consider on your piece of paper for this question, for this land use and development one, write your answer on that. We'll collect them. All right. And when you're done voting, you can put your phone in your lap, put your head in your lap, do whatever you want to let me know that you're done voting. It's a definitive phone in the lab back there. So I appreciate that. Real quick while you're voting on this, how many people have lived in El Paso County more than 10 years? More than 20? More than 30? More than 40? All right, I quit asking after that because I get in trouble. Who's lived here less than 5? Couple. Okay. Okay, so some of the ones that are up here that voted number 1 was encourage a range of development uses to support a variety of, or types to support a variety of land uses. One of the approaches we're considering for the plan is to establish different place types or land use areas of the county. Places that are conservation areas where we don't want anything. Military bases, either the existing ones or areas where they probably might grow or do something a little bit different. Areas where we want to have a real low density, sort of a design with nature sort of an atmosphere or an area where it's low density, single family homes sort of nestled in to the topography. Areas that might be a little bit more urban with some commercial nodes or restaurants or areas with sidewalks that you might walk around. Some areas might be ranch areas that wouldn't have sidewalks or be close to commercial, but big, large areas for different types of uses. So the approach is if we can identify the right mix of that, then it's where do we want to see what in different places. So as development comes in, we can guide that growth and direction. Who had something that they wrote as an other? Yeah. Okay, environmental protection is number one. Okay. Yes, sir.
A lot more public participation in major land use decisions.
Very good.
I have to tell you how upsetting it was for many of us out in the forest to have seen the ranch sketch plan approval take zoning approved for 205 units, go up to 2,100 units on aquifer water with no infrastructure, no highways, nothing to take that traffic from that community to the highway. It's really outrageous.
So you want to see more public participation in land use and development decision making. I agree. That stuff needs to be really put out there. Anybody else have an other that they want to share? Okay, good. Let's go on to the next topic. We have 10 of these to do. I just want to keep going. So the next one is economic development. All right, so here we go. So the idea is to strengthen the economy with a skilled workforce and targeted investment. So not just letting stuff happen wherever, but economic development, developing a skilled workforce, and directing or managing that and attracting that economic development through strategic investment in different areas. How important is this to you over the next 20 years as we plan? Is it not important or not applicable, or is it very important, number 5? And where in that spectrum does economic development lie with regard to the master plan? All right, this one has a much bigger distribution between 3, 4, and 5. Who sort of ranked this as a middle of the road, like a 3, like it's important, not super important, not the least important? Anybody? Who voted for a 3? Look at this incredible participation in the front, my left corner. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. Mostly it's just that I take issue with the term skilled workforce in the first place, because everybody who's working is working and deserves a livable wage and a decent living situation, and we already haven't addressed that between the minimum wage and the affordable housing availability and all of that. Right. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So again, when we use the word skilled workforce, it's sort of an industry term. And one of the biggest challenges as we work around the country where there's a potential to bring in investment and businesses and industry or production or logistics or whatever, and they don't need college degrees with umpteen whatever else, but they want a skilled workforce. One of the biggest deterrents for somebody going into an area is just like the skilled workforce isn't there. So skilled workforce can be a pretty wide range from could be factory stuff, assembly stuff, distribution stuff. It doesn't have to be education skilled set like a traditional academic route, but it could be a trade route. But one of the biggest deterrents to big job employers coming in is that they're like, I look around and the workforce I need isn't here. So skilled workforce could be a wide range of what skill is, but if you don't have it, that's a real tough ask for business. Yeah, go ahead. No, it doesn't presume any of that, but I guess what this says is if we are going to try to attract a desirable business through investment, where do we want that in the county to go? So what you were saying before is we had a business come in, incentives were leveraged that maybe didn't have to be, and the development went in a place that it shouldn't have gone. So if it went in the correct area of the county and a different type of investing or didn't, would that have been a win? Right. So that goes to the plan, and you can't, right. But you can't project out over 10 or 20 years with a crystal ball and know what business may or may not be coming to you. But you have to say, okay, here's the litmus test. These are the 6 things we're looking for if we want to attract you or not attract you and how we're going to accommodate that attraction. So it's not a yes or no, it's on a case-by-case basis.
I guess as a retired planner, I feel that if we protect the quality of life and
Exactly right.
Will come. Skilled people will come.
Right.
Managers will come unless we take away from them all the desirable areas. of the
Right.
workforce.
Quality of life is the biggest economic driver right now, period. Quality of life. If you take away quality of life, people are not going to want to live there. Businesses will not locate there. Business owners won't want to live there, and they won't ask their employees to live there. So quality of life is the biggest thing for economic development, hands down. You're exactly right. Anybody else have anything they want to say about the economic development and ranking stuff? Anybody? Who thinks it's one of the most important things? And why? Yeah, right here in the red sweater. Yeah?
I just think that's managing growth in a good way, and I agree that skilled workforce doesn't necessarily mean educational
Absolutely.
or cybersecurity. It'd be great to have a diesel engine plant here, something where we could employ a lot of different people, and targeted investment as well. Sometimes I think that the county and the city don't target the investments the best. I'm one who would take issue with granting at the Air Force Academy urban blight to 200 acres of pristine forest, but we did that to attract the visitor center. So that's just another view.
And I guess, I remember when I was a kid going for my first job, I think in 5th grade or 6th grade, I was getting all nervous. And my dad said, he goes, what you'll realize as you go through life, there's nothing better than being gainfully employed, and you don't realize it till you want to be and you're not. And he's pretty spot on. And if your local economy isn't working, not much else works. It's all got to work in concert, but if there isn't our local economy providing jobs across the full spectrum of what jobs could be, if people can have a livable wage and have a high quality of life, if economics isn't part of that, then the quality of life isn't there. So it's an essential component of that mix, for sure. All right, so we've got a few different objectives that we're beginning to craft, or goals underneath here. To recruit new businesses, to spur development in the growing sectors that might be growing over the next 20 years. We don't know what all those are. Support efforts to recruit, train, and retain a skilled workforce. That could be a broad spectrum of what it is, but you don't want someone not coming here because there isn't a skilled workforce for them. Encourage the development of commercial districts in underserved areas of the county. Utilize economic opportunity zones to support new business development. Coordinate with military installations to foster new development that creates new jobs or other. So of these potential objectives that could go under economic development, slide these around as to which ones you think are most important to least important. Others started out strong there for a second. It got up to 2, and then jumped back down. No. Most I've ever seen it is second from last. People almost always vote for something, even if they then fill in another. So. All right, so a few of you are still more voting. Other jumped up and down a few times. Who had something other written on their paper that they wanted to share in terms of a strategy for economic development? I know there's got to be at least a couple of people did it because it shot up to number 2 there at the beginning. So, who wrote something down or voted for an other, and what might their other answer be? Anybody? No? Anybody? No? Okay. Mystery. It's all right. Oh.
One here. It's just taking them a while to share.
Okay, that's
I'll let
okay.
you
As
know.
soon as we know from Facebook Live what it is, we'll find out. Who voted for support efforts to recruit, train, and retain a skilled workforce as their top one? A few different people. When we do this in some cities, like we did this for the city of Flint several years ago, about 4 years before the water thing hit there. And they actually tied the economic development chapter of their master plan and the education chapter of their master plan into one chapter, because they said if we don't start training through education our youth, that's the most important thing we can do for our local economy going forward. So that city actually tied education element and the economic development element together into one element, because they said that's got to be our play going forward. I thought that was a pretty intriguing notion, but it began to get at the idea of a skilled workforce. So I thought that was pretty important. Who wrote encourage the development of commercial districts in underserved areas? Okay. Any ideas as to where you might want to see?
Okay, yeah. Southeast Colorado Springs in particular, they've been largely neglected. They used to
Okay.
have a workforce center down there, and they moved it up to Briargate inexplicably, and so
Okay.
that's just the first place that comes to mind.
Okay, good, good. And then was recruit new businesses and spur development of growing sectors. Who put that one in there? Who voted for the importance of attracting new business? No, nobody? Ghost has been voting. Do we have our comment from the field?
Thanks, but she didn't.
Okay, there you go, thanks. So we don't know what the others are. All right, it's all right. So economic development is crucial. Again, if your local economy doesn't work and people can't get jobs across the full spectrum, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It affects housing, it affects education, it affects quality of life, it affects everything. So that's a hugely important thing for the county. And unlike a lot of counties across the United States, El Paso County has some very urbanized areas. A lot of counties across the country, all the urbanized areas are in municipalities, and the county is not very urbanized. But you've got some pockets of pretty intense development, and that's a little bit different than a lot of counties have to face in different parts of the United States. All right, this is housing and communities, all right? So preserve and develop neighborhoods with a mix of different housing types as opposed to just all one or the other. So housing, neighborhoods, and providing a mix of residential housing types. How important is that across the full spectrum of the county? How many people in here live in a single family, like a detached home? Okay. How many people live in something other than that? Okay, so half dozen or so, right? He lives right here at his desk downstairs. All right, so this one, as the fields are being populated, I can see this. There are more ones and twos on this one than any previous category. So who has voted, if they're willing to say so, that they don't think this is a very important or applicable thing for the county in their long-range master plan to be addressing this notion of preserving neighborhoods with a mix of different housing types? Who doesn't? Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Okay.
To the mix, because there's usually a plan for that development, and then you get nice homes and apartments right next to each other. I just like neighborhoods that
Okay.
are similar, to each other. Too much mix bothers me.
Okay. So what she was talking about is sort of the mix of housing types. You're saying you don't want the mix within the same neighborhood, but there could be townhomes over here, there could be single family over here. You just don't want to see it all mixed up in one. Was it? Okay. Yeah, you want more of the same type of housing in the same neighborhood or same area, even if a different area has a different type, they're not all mixed into one area. So there's a little bit of continuity of character of that area. Okay, fair enough. Better word, sorry. I've been doing this a while. Anybody else who doesn't think this that housing or providing a mix of housing types might be as important of an issue? No? Okay. Who voted this as a 4 or 5, something that they think is very important going forward, that the county provide a mix of residential type? Yeah, ma'am, right here. We haven't heard from you. Yep. I saw your hand shoot up. Go ahead.
So I think it's important to provide mixes of housing types because we have a disparity in affordable housing, and then you tend to see whole parts of the city that look vastly different than other parts, and leads to accessibility issues and job issues and so forth. And it seems like a mix of housing types within neighborhoods would address a lot of that.
That in the planning world in a lot of areas, that's generally what a lot of places have done, especially when it comes to, say, more dense or more affordable housing, is not to put all of it in one area, because that area doesn't seem to sustain its quality of life over time, where if you might have it more evenly distributed, it'd still be very high quality. And when I say affordable, I don't want you to think subsidized or Section 8. All it means is if you've got homes that are $800,000 and homes that are $280,000 all available on the market, it's still a market rate house. It's just at the other end of the spectrum of affordability. It's not subsidized, federalized housing. So affordable scares some people because of what it can mean, but we're not talking about Section 8 or subsidized housing. We're talking about a more affordable product. So your point is well taken, and a lot of cities are adopting that approach. I think another thing that is driving a diversity of housing type is two things. For the first time ever really in history, I think, this is my anecdotal summary of it, 24-year-olds and 64-year-olds want the same thing. That's never happened before, like it has now. As seniors now are more and more and more and more active, and the priorities for millennials or 24, 28-year-olds is shifting, both ends of the spectrum now, entering the workforce and leaving the workforce, who love an area because of quality of life, they want to have the option of walking and biking. They don't want to have to drive. They'd rather have a nice bike than a nice car. They sometimes would often want to rent as opposed to own. They want to spend their money on experiences, not buying more stuff, but living life more adventurously or outdoor or touristically minded. So it's driving changing of the built environment really rapidly, and housing is part of that. If you want to attract that millennial, young, sort of dynamic workforce near an urbanized area, might not all want 1 acre homes on 5 acre lots. There's going to be a lot of people who want that. There's going to be some people that don't. Aging in place, if people know what aging in place is, it's another major theme that's taking over. As robustly young as this audience is in general, I'm sure some of you are probably now getting to the point where maybe you'll live in your home for years more. Maybe you say, I still could, but I might like a different type of housing product. Aging in place is the ability to live from cradle to grave in your community without having to be forced to move because there isn't a housing available for you that fits your lifestyle needs, all right? And the best way I've heard it change is as you age or go through life, you may change your lifestyle. That doesn't mean you change your quality of life. And if you live in a nice, big, beautiful single-family home on a large lot, as you go through life, at some point you might want to live in a smaller condominium, still real high quality, all the amenities. You're not changing your quality of life, you're changing your lifestyle. So aging in place is the notion that there's a variety of housing product out there that no matter whether you're young or older, there is a type of housing product for you in the community you choose to live. So that's the notion of aging in place. That's driving a lot of housing very rapidly as well. Yes, sir.
There's one other thing that's really not covered in this really excellent list, and that is that I think almost everybody here in this room wants to keep us from becoming Denver and its suburbs.
Right.
I think we're really all of us concerned about density becoming overpowering and absolutely losing our differentiation among cities our size.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think we're very protective of what we have. We understand that growth is going to happen,
Right.
but I think we're all very sensitive to the fact that we do not want it to become what we have seen to the north.
Yeah, I would agree. And that's a very, very valid point, and rightfully so. You've got a very unique character to the county, and it changes as you move around the county. To want to protect that quality of life, you should never have to sort of justify the position to qualify to protect what it is that you've got. And to be a homogeneous suburb, who wants that? So you're spot on, right? It's another reason why we have to have this plan is if this development is coming, where does it go and how does it go, so we don't just saturate everything that we love with the same old cookie cutter developments. That would be a tragedy, right? That'd be a tragedy. All right, let's go to the next. So these are some potential goals around housing and communities. Promote development with a mix of housing types in identified areas. So might not be a big mix in one area, but it might be a mix around. Preserve the character of rural and environmentally sensitive areas. That's what we're talking about. Locate attainable housing that provides convenient access to goods, services, and employment, so it's where that affordable housing is located. Support aging in place housing options to meet residents' needs throughout all ages and stages of life, or other. So there's 4 key objectives here that we think should drive the approach to residential and neighborhoods and others. So slide those up and down. All right, so the first one that's the top right now is the one that I think if I were a resident here, I would probably vote for as well, because it's such a unique and beautiful place, especially in certain areas of the county. It's undeniable. It's why it's so sought after and coveted as a place to be, is because of what you have. And to accommodate development in the future that would begin to disintegrate that is not good. So the first one is preserve the character of natural and environmentally sensitive areas. And I think that's a very important one with so many features. The next one is locate attainable housing that provides convenient access to goods and services. That's, again, one that's becoming more and more of an issue. I think it goes to workforce, to poverty, to sustainable living wages. It goes to so many different things. And it's not about having attainable housing sort of tucked away over here, not near anything, but they're also the people who might live there might be less likely to have a car, be able to drive to work, whatever else. They might need more convenient access to goods, services, employment, transit, things like that. Who put in there support aging in place? So I guess everybody here is just going to live on, oh, we've got a couple back there. But I know that's driving a lot of the residential. Go ahead and let her sort of comment why she picked that one.
Well, that's my number one. I'm 67. I live in unincorporated El Paso County. I have absolutely no desire to move. Having served in the military, both my husband and myself, we have traveled around many places. This is the longest we have lived in any one dwelling in our entire lives. And we've been in our house since '91.
That's great.
And that is my absolute goal. I'm going out feet first.
Right. My wife thinks the same way. She thinks this whole idea of like going from a home to a townhome to a condo. She's like, no way, we're in this house, I love it, we're not moving, they can take me out when we're done. But she's the same way, she's not going anywhere. So, and anybody have an other? Did anybody else have an other residential thing that we wanted to address that they had comments on? Any? All right, let's go to the next one. So this one is about transportation and mobility. The county services, like I said, the county area is 2,100 square miles. It is massive. And as development occurs, there's a lot of county roads that had to be maintained, plowed, surfaced, built, et cetera. Infrastructure is a big deal, traffic is a big deal. So the theme here for transportation and mobility is to connect all areas of the county with a safe and efficient multimodal transportation system. So you know, the county did a transportation master plan in 16, right? Right? And are redoing another one in 5 years. Every 5 years they do one. So the master plan that we're doing, a lot of it we're not reinventing the wheel. If they do a master plan for transportation every 5 years, our job is to coordinate this effort with that so it works together. So development areas are well served by roads, et cetera. So we're not going to be redoing the transportation master plan, but incorporating the recommendations of the transportation master plan. But in terms of over the next 20 years, 200,000 more people is a lot more cars. So, just saying. And several people here will say it's not applicable. Why? Anybody? Not so important to address? Yeah, ma'am.
The word I have trouble with all areas, and the other word I have trouble with multimodal.
Okay.
So I,
Good. Okay, it's a good observation. That's good. So let me address a couple things. Connecting all areas of the county doesn't mean we're going to put, I don't think it means, and we'll make sure that it doesn't, that we're going to be putting roads in everywhere. But the county has for emergency vehicle response, firefighting, ambulance, whatever else. There are areas that are way, way, way out east in the county that we have to still maintain access to. They're not going to have the grid system like further in, but we still have to have access to all areas of the county. Different transportation levels. And multimodal as well. That's a very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Multimodal means walking, biking, transit, driving. It means everything. So multiple modes of transportation. In some areas, a road is all you're going to have. It's all you're going to want to have. You want a minimal impact. In other areas that might be more urbanized, you want a sidewalk on both sides, maybe a bike path because they're only a half mile away from a commercial area, but you wouldn't want to put that, nor could you financially put that way out east. You couldn't, what's the point of putting in sidewalks where there's a bunch of ranches? So it's providing the network you need to appropriately in the county and accommodating all modes of transportation, even though you wouldn't accommodate every mode in every location. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a real good point. That's a real good point. Anybody else have any comments or questions on transportation? Thoughts, priorities, issues?
We have one.
Oh,
This is actually one that came earlier.
okay.
Is this on, guys? I don't know if that's on.
I can repeat it if it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty basic, but this woman had just said that I pressed the button. I just don't know if
It's not on.
She just says plan for, this is Grace, and she says plans for traffic including a loop, a train, and more bus routes and bike lanes.
Okay, so there's a person who was commenting on buses, transit, and bike lanes. So they're basically hitting the trifecta of non-car traffic. And in certain areas, that's a luxury. If you don't have a lot of money and can't have a car, it's a necessity. Take away someone's mobility, and it is a crippling thing. If they can't get to stores, if they can't get to shopping, if they can't get to a job because they don't have a car. So in some areas, some of these other types of transportation options are necessities. So in some areas of the counties, sure. In other areas, absolutely not. So thank you, Grace, wherever you are watching. Appreciate that. All right. So here are a couple of transportation and mobility objectives. Establish a transportation network that connects all areas to one another, emphasizing east-west routes and reducing traffic congestion and promoting safe and efficient travel. We know there are some hot spots, and we know east-west travel is pretty tough. So a few prioritized roads might be a key thing. Promote walkable and bikeable where multimodal transportation systems are feasible. So not everywhere, but where they're needed only. Foster transit-supported development and develop a sustainable funding mechanism for transportation and infrastructure. Transportation infrastructure is expensive, and how we're going to pay for that going forward. So I think when we go from the general statement on the previous slide to more specific objectives, we begin to get at the detail that some of the people in the audience mentioned. Multimodal, sure, but not everywhere. Provide sidewalks in some locations, yeah, but not all over. Connect areas of the county where appropriate. So we get to some of the nuanced language that was a concern when we first went around. All right, so I'll ask this, if you guys were in charge starting tomorrow, all right, and you had a decent amount of money, all right, or CDOT was willing to work with you, and you had one transportation infrastructure project for the county, what would it be? And don't say pave the road in your neighborhood at the end of your block. County-wide, what would you do if you had the ability to undertake a big, like, we're going to do this project and it's going to be a game changer? What project would you do? Yeah. Finish up Powers and make it more user-friendly. Anybody else?
We've got one on Facebook, John.
Oh,
This gentleman, I think it's pronounced Teddy. Sorry if I didn't say that right. He says it would be nice to see some improvements on Highway 94, especially with the growth of Schriever. And then Grace resounded her response on the loop. She would like a loop on the highway.
okay, a loop on the highway.
She's really pushing that loop.
She's talking about Musk's Hyperloop. Is that what she's talking about?
She says she's comparing it to C470.
Okay.
In Denver. I
And
believe that's in
the
Denver,
latest
yes.
guy said he wanted to see improvements to 94 and what else?
That was because of the growth at Schriever.
Because of the growth at Schriever. Okay, yes, sir.
North-south. We got east-west, we need north-south.
You need north-south, okay? It's Powers, right? Okay. Well, go ahead.
They started with Academy, then they went to Power, and now it's Market.
Right. Started with Academy, then went to Powers. Anybody else? Transportation project, you're the transportation czar. El Paso County is your one shot. What do you do? It's all on you. What are you throwing out there? What's your campaign project? What is it? Oh, right here.
Hi. I would like to address the growth in the northern part of the county. There's tons of growth, and so there's lots of residential areas, and there's not a lot of public transportation, period.
Okay. So you think public transportation, particularly in the northern parts of the county, but everywhere. Okay, very good. Very good. All right, last shot. Transportation czar, anybody? Yep.
I'm very opinionated. Thank
That's
you
all
for
right.
letting me interject a lot. Public transit is absolutely number one here, I think, at this point, especially to start thinking about more than buses and start looking at rail. Like you said, we can only fit so many cars
Right.
in El Paso County before the people who still want to have one are just going to be sitting in traffic complaining that too many cars are on the road. So.
All right, very good. Yep, one more.
This is Lisa says a light rail from Monument to South Circle.
So a light rail from Monument to South Circle. You said that was Lisa?
Yes, I would use that as well,
All
probably.
right, very good. So people are actually paying attention out there. I like it. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll go on to so the next one is community and facilities. There's a lot of facilities the county has to provide. There's some of it that is held through different districts. Some of it the county provides. Development all isn't private sector. There's a corresponding heavy lift on the public sector side to make sure development and growth and quality of life is in fact maintained. So continue to coordinate with local and regional agencies to provide well-managed, high-quality community facilities and services. How many fire districts are in the county? Too many to count. There's a bunch. Water districts or water providers? Even more. So it's not just, there are a lot of players in El Paso County, public, private, quasi-public, and they all have to coordinate together to maintain quality of life as development happens. Even if no development happens going forward, we just have what we have. Those services are crucial to quality of life. And again, most of these are 4s and 5s, a few 3s, no 1s and 2s. Too often planning rotates around private sector development and things like that, and it doesn't give enough attention to the services provided by public entities and agencies. And that's really the quality of life stuff. Park districts, trails, police, emergency, fire, response, naturalized wooded areas that have to be maintained and managed. That's public sector, folks. That's not a corporation. That's not a business. That is your tax dollars at work providing a quality of life for amenities that aren't governed under private sector. So a very important part of planning. Go to the next. Yeah, please.
Why is the front end of this goal a coordination goal? Why doesn't it just say provide well-managed, high-quality community facilities and services?
I think, well, these are themes that we want to get at, and because so many of them are not under the county's jurisdiction or singular authority. So coordination of delivery of those services is crucial. And so coordination is a big part of that. A lot of them will be delivered and can be delivered by the county, but a lot of it is delivered by other agencies or organizations. And as a resident, do you really care who it's coming from, or you just care that it's being delivered in a high quality fashion? So if for this one compared to some of the other ones, coordination is just a really, really key part of the governance of and distribution of community facilities and services, because so much of it is not done by the county or the private sector. It's other agencies or organizations. Coordination in that situation is key. So it's also one of the biggest challenges because it's not the county's jurisdiction. It's like the municipality working with CDOT. There might be a lot of things they want to do on a roadway. CDOT says, yeah, we don't want to do that. That's tough because CDOT's the jurisdiction over that right-of-way. And when you talk about services and facilities, you've got a lot of service providers in the county that aren't services being provided by the county. So coordination is it. So the county may approve a development in an area, but its services are provided by a different agency or organization. And if there isn't coordination as to where that development is approved or not and how it's serviced, whether it's the county or not, it's a big problem. Yeah. So that's why coordination's in this one and not some of the other ones. All right, so here's some potential priorities or some goals. Coordinate with agencies to provide high quality community facilities, services, and infrastructure. Oh, you guys are voting before I read them off. This makes it real tough because they jump around. ensure adequate provision of utilities to manage growth, improve the effectiveness of public safety through coordination, funding, and planning, and use best management practices to protect water quality, conserve water, minimize impact of flooding, and beautify El Paso County. We did the master plan, the comprehensive plan for Aurora, Colorado a couple of years ago. And I was doing interviews of different people at the city. I interviewed the mayor, and I'm in his office, and I said, okay, top 3 most important issues facing Aurora. He goes, that's easy. Water, number 1, water, number 2, and water, number 3. He's like, that's it. He goes, if we don't figure that out, he goes, what's the point of anything else? So that's pretty interesting. Right. And when you get to development of a certain density, it necessitates sewer and water as opposed to well and septic. And so that, there are a lot of different things in a lot of counties across the country. When I talked about the urban development that El Paso County has in certain areas that other counties don't in other states, because a lot of states require, and municipalities require, or counties require, that if development happens at a certain density, it has to be serviced by an adjacent municipality, and the municipality then has to annex it. So the services, water and infrastructure, police, fire, if a development of that density takes place, it gets approved through an annexation agreement. The municipality incorporates it, so the burden then isn't on the county to maintain development that is within its jurisdiction with services provided by somebody else. And that's a challenge, and a lot of states will say, if you're gonna go to water and sewer, they might not have private service providers. So it has to be the municipality or well and septic. So you don't get dense development in the county, but here you do. So it's a different ballgame that's unique. All right, so some of the top rated ones here is use best management practices to protect water quality, conserve water, minimize impacts of flooding, and beautify El Paso County. The next one was to adequately ensure provision of adequate utilities to guide growth and development. That's a huge one. What you want to prevent is that leapfrog development, where somebody can get utilities extended, not next to a developed area, but out in a pristine area, and all of a sudden you've got a developed area, then you're driving miles, and another thing pops up that you wouldn't expect to see out there because utilities were provided. And that can be a real challenge. Anybody have any comment? Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Whereby, any developer who's got water rights will see really well and reserve the whole area around them and start leapfrog development.
Right. It's a real challenge. And a lot of that stuff, again, the challenge that the county has, lots of times the people think the county is the jurisdiction that's allowing some of that to happen. Some of it is outside the county's jurisdiction, then they have to deal with the manifestation of what could happen if someone does that. So it's a real challenge. I worked in Arizona for a while, and development in certain areas wasn't that big a deal. And then when there was a court case that showed that certain tribal jurisdictions could sell water rights because they had the rights to water rights as opposed to using them just for the tribe. And when developers figured out they could buy water rights for millions of dollars from tribal land, development happened in areas overnight, and it was just, you drive by an area and the next week you drive by, there'd be 1,000 homes being built. It happened like that. That was about 30 years ago, but the ability to provide infrastructure in otherwise undevelopable areas is a game changer, overnight.
Our big concern is that when these metro districts, when they run out of water, there's going to be a huge bill that's going to be payable to put in pipelines coming from areas where there are surface water rights. And it's just not right to see our county commissioners saying, hey, it's okay, there's unlimited water underneath us, and we'll just let the future worry about it.
Right.
It's just not sustainable, it's not good planning, and it needs to be stopped.
All right, anybody else before you go to the next one on infrastructure? Yes, ma'am.
I have another remark on water safety. We've had a massive issue here with contaminants from firefighting foam on the military installations, the PFAs and PFCs, and now they're saying that they're up at the Air Force Academy as well, and we're all drinking it, and it's poisoning everybody in this community. So I feel like if this plan doesn't have something in it about protecting water quality and preventing contamination like that, then we just drop the ball.
Right. It's a pretty crucial resource. They say blue is the new green. If blue goes, everything goes brown, so I guess. Next one. All right, so the next one is military bases, so nice segue over there. But they really are a prominent component of the landscape in El Paso County. They're a good partner in so many different ways. They provide a lot of employment to the area. They bring a lot of military and non-military. So one of the things here is to foster effective working relationships with the military installations to support planning efforts and mutual success. Again, we talk about jurisdictions that are fairly autonomous. Military is one with them. Within, what is it, a 2-mile distance from the military bases, we've got to coordinate with activity within that distance around them. And you have several, and they're large. So they're a big player. So, and we've got a couple of different firms that are on our development team. We've got Tetra Tech and HRNA, and they did the military base alignment study about a year ago or so, was it? So they've got a real good relationship with the military bases, the different jurisdictions. So working with them to make sure we have all that coordination taking place. And the other firm is a infrastructure firm to make sure the engineering, infrastructure, the water, resources, and things like that are taken care of. So we brought those two firms in to work with us. Okay, so it shows here that, again, mostly 3s, 4s, and 5s. There's a few different here in terms of not applicable or not important. We may have little sway with what goes on or no sway with what goes on the military base, but coordinating with them. They're one of the biggest employers, if not the biggest employer in the county, I would imagine. Second? Who's first? Healthcare, okay. So healthcare industry is number 1 employer, military is number 2. So, yes?
Previous slides you had coordinate with the military, it was like the 3rd one down or 4th.
Right.
Now this was number 5. So that doesn't compute.
Well, the other one was about economic development. Yeah. So that was like, is there a way to spur employment, economic development, and that component of planning through enacted coordination with the military bases and what's going on around them, right, because they're such a big employer. This one is just about how do we coordinate. They have big transportation needs, they have big land use needs, a lot of the housing needs are met off base, a lot of their shopping and retail needs are met off base, so there's a lot of coordination between them, not to do with economic development, but just land planning, transportation, infrastructure, things like that. Yeah, so the previous one was as an economic criteria, can we leverage military bases better economically for the county's benefit? This is how do we coordinate with them as a partner going forward on everything. Yeah. So, but you raise a good point. What you'll notice as we go through these, it's impossible to divorce these from one another. All of these things are related. All of these things go back, like what this gentleman was talking about, quality of life. They all are factors in quality of life. And if any one of these things drops too far off, even if the other things are high up, it doesn't compensate. And quality of life is it. And all of these things are interrelated, all of them. So even if one gets a higher priority than the other, that doesn't mean that something gets a lower priority. It's not going to be addressed. It has to be addressed. So, anybody else have any thoughts about how many people in here are ex-military, have a military kid, military husband, military wife, military something? Okay. There are brothers and sisters, aunts, uncles, moms, dads, right? So, I'm one of 9 kids. There's lots of military in my family. Okay, so there's some of the things with military bases, only 2. So support compatible land uses within and close proximity to bases, and ensure coordinated planning efforts for transportation and impacts and access, or any other ideas on how to coordinate with the military bases. I guess as a landholder, they would be the biggest in the county, right? You think? Or some of the state wild areas? Federal government, yeah. So if you own a bunch of property and you employ a bunch of people, we got to find a way to work with you. That's the bottom line. So, all right, so the main thing here is, oh, look at that. See, I was just going to go. But these 2 things go hand in hand. Infrastructure and transportation and coordinated land use, they go hand in hand with military bases. And as they change over time, they have to. Go to the next one. The next one is recreation and tourism. And as the one gentleman mentioned, the importance of tourism at the beginning, in the state of Colorado, the enabling legislation for comprehensive plans states that you have to address tourism. It doesn't have to be its own chapter. It could be a sentence. It could be whatever, but it mandates that you address tourism. And tourism is a big, 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 big deal. So to maintain and expand, and we'll get into more detail later, to maintain and expand the county's recreation and tourism options over the next 20 years as one of the most important things or not? One of the things I thought was interesting when we worked in Aurora was the Anschutz Medical Campus. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Their annual revenue exceeds the ski industry for the state of Colorado annually. Yeah. Yeah. So those medical guys are okay. That number blew me away. Yeah, it was. But that surprised me. That campus is. But that's a good example of a catalytic thing where you've got a major employer, major research thing, and is now what's happening around the medical campus as a spinoff from that. It's really served as a catalyst to an area of Aurora that had been underserved forever. And now it's a really hot, desirable place to be. And that Anschutz served as the catalyst to start that ball rolling. If we could get a couple of catalysts in the right place here, could we achieve something that might not be next door to you, but something you wouldn't mind driving to in 20 minutes? So where in the county might things like that go? Okay, so again, a lot of 3, 4s, and 5s, a couple 1s and 2s, not many. Let's go to the next one. Anybody want to reiterate, again, why they think or what they think some of the most important things are about tourism? Or maybe something they think about tourism that could be further exploited that isn't right now in the county, potential-wise?
I want to say that I have some issues with dumping tourism in unincorporated areas where residents really move to be left alone.
Okay. So it can be land use can be a component of tourism, and like the other land use, it has unintended consequences for areas that might be close to it. And that's a good point. Tourism might, on its surface, look like a fairly low impact thing, but if it's driving thousands and thousands of people to that low impact thing, that's not a low impact anymore. It's a huge impact. So it might not be development, but it might be a naturalized tourist destination that's driving a lot of traffic. That's good. So support high quality, sustainable outdoor recreation as a key amenity. Plan for and provide a variety of parks, trails, and open spaces throughout. Explore projects, programs, and initiatives for enhancing tourism in unincorporated areas. So according to his last statement, that third one would not be a high vote. So how many people in this room went biking sometime this week? Oh, come on. We're in Colorado. Come on. It's cold and snowy, okay. We were in Grand Junction about 4 weeks ago. Anybody been to Grand Junction? It's a real quaint little nice downtown. We're walking in there downtown, and in a 1.5 block stretch on one side of the street, they had 6 outdoor adventure equipment sports gear stores. 6 in a block and a half in downtown. And I'm like, you wouldn't have to do any economic study or market analysis or whatever. You could have walked that 1 20-second stretch and gotten a real good sense of what they prioritize in terms of quality of life and character profile and whatever else. It's pretty remarkable. All right, so again, support high quality, sustainable outdoor recreation and key amenities for residents and visitors, pretty high. Again, this is something, it's what draws a lot of people to El Paso County. It is a priority for the state, and it is mandated that the county address it. So we'll be coordinating with other county organizations that are charged more with tourism to try to adapt as part of the plan. Next one is community health. Health is a rapidly and growing lens through which planning is being done. Over the last 10 to 12 years, sustainability has probably been the biggest lens. Sustainability, LEED ND, green best practices, things like that. But in some parts of the country, there's pushback to the sustainability. People might say, oh, you know, tree huggers, this, that, whatever else. They sort of roll their eyes. But if you come at it and say, we want to make your community the healthiest place to live, there's never any pushback. Because who doesn't want to live a healthier lifestyle? Who doesn't want to have healthier kids? Who doesn't want to live a little bit longer as long as your quality of life is good? So health is rapidly becoming the lens to which a lot of planning is done across the United States. And it came up frequently in different ways as we talked to the thousands of people over the last 6 months. So it'll be addressed in the plan. We don't know exactly how. But improve public health by focusing on local partnerships, food access, and environmental quality as part of the plan. So. Anybody in here work in the health industry? Nobody. My wife's an ICU nurse. She tells me I don't drink enough water and I drink too much Diet Coke. She's probably right. Right? Oh, that's rough, man. All right, so again, most of these, it looks like there's as many 3s almost as there are 5s and 4s. Again, anybody have any specific issues that they have with regard to a health concern in the county? I think some people said access to health care for certain populations within the county. But it's the #1 employer, so pretty big impact. Pardon? Coal-fired fire plant. Power plant, yeah. All right, so here's some different things with regard to community health. Support community environmental health, initiatives through collaborative efforts with other organizations, ensure all residents have reasonable access to safe and affordable nutritious foods. County has a health department. We've met with them, chatted with them, and we'll be coordinating with some of their initiatives to make sure they're manifested in this plan. All right. Anybody have any comments about community health at all? Any priorities they'd like to see? Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see more access to education about nutrition and healthy food, because vegetables are all fine and good, but ultimately people just need to learn the correct diet and nutrition to eat.
I agree. So focus on the nutritional or the health stuff within the educational system so kids or everybody knows a little bit more about it. That's good. Yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest something that has worked well in the past before the insurance lobby made sure that it was destroyed in the state legislature, and that is multi-employer welfare associations.
Okay.
Or trusts where lots of small employers can get together under one umbrella, one association umbrella, and have a single self-funded health plan that's reinsured. And that way they can get the discounts enjoyed by the big guys.
Okay, good.
That's something that can be done here.
It's doable. All right, so sort of an umbrella program for smaller organizations to get together to have the same access or benefits as a larger organization or employees. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I know it's as a small business employer, the check I write every month for healthcare for 20 employees is a monumental number. So I'm all for that. There's a lot. It's about are there problems to sort of education programs to try to combat childhood obesity, to try to get people to move more. You know, what they say, eat less, move more. A lot of it is education based. A lot of it is do children in certain areas or people have access to where they can play outside in some areas of the county? Absolutely. In other areas of the county, not at all. So a lot of it, when we talk about community health, it's not direct health services. It can be, but it's also the pollution, access to food. Can you walk around if you wanted to? Can you play outside? A lot of it is the environmental aspects that are healthy or not inducive to being healthy. Right? And like I said, across the United States, it is rapidly becoming the biggest lens through which planning is being done. All right, the next one, the environment and natural resources. And you, like I said, you could go from Black Forest, beautiful rolling hills, beautiful pine trees on the north. You go to Pikes Peak on the west. You go to flat ranch lands on the far east. And you go down south, you get like sand dunes. So you literally, in one study area, the diversity of ecology, the diversity of natural resources and environmental systems is really amazing. It is, to say it is unique within the country is an understatement. It's really an amazing place. So, so it's going to be one that's going to be addressed very heavily in the plan. But with regard to the environment and natural resources, to prioritize and protect the county's natural environment as a theme going forward, factored into everything else that we do. So I'm expecting to see a lot of 5s, maybe, in this category. Does anybody have any areas of the county that they think ought to be more protected than they are right now, if a plan going forward, areas that might be a little bit more sensitive than what is right now? The prairie, okay. Pardon?
Garden of the Gods.
Garden of the Gods?
It's overused.
All right. It's overused.
Yeah.
Okay.
All around Palmer Park and the Pulpit Rock open space and all along the bluffs there, they're just kind of anywhere where there's a single plot of land, there's a new come and go, a new, whatever,
Right.
new fast food restaurant, and none of that's being protected. It's all the way up against the park, so.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to commend your second bullet point there, promoting sustainable best practices with regard to development and infrastructure. I think that's the end game of what all
It
of us
is.
are looking for.
It is, right.
Excellent. It is
Right.
really true, because without sustainable water supply, without transportation arteries that will get people from
Yeah.
where they are to where they want to go, then our quality of life is shot.
Game over.
Yeah.
Right. You're exactly right.
Thank you.
All right, go to the next. So I think he worked ahead, right? We're on this one. So this is, again, rank these. So consider the environmental impacts related to natural resources conservation, air quality, water quality, wildlife habitat, wastewater management during any planning process, and promote sustainable best practices with regard to development and infrastructure. There are ways to develop wisely. There are ways to not develop wisely. There is development and infrastructure that is sustainable, there is infrastructure that is not. A lot of engineering systems that are being done now are environmentally or ecologically engineered systems versus gray systems, and the impacts over time are tremendous. Yeah. It's all that voting. You can read it on your phone if you want. You got to scroll or expand, right? Yeah. That's why I say don't vote until I get done reading it, because I can't read it once they start moving around. It was brutal. But there's no mystery as to why people love living here and why people love visiting here. You come here to visit, and you immediately go back to wherever you came from and talk about how great it is here. And if you're fortunate enough to live here, you go other places and you come back and say, boy, it sure is great here. So there's no mystery as to the value of the environment and the natural amenities, the environmental spaces that you have here. And if those are lost over time, you don't get those back. You don't get those back. So the challenge is, as you face pressures for accommodating hundreds of thousands of new people over the next 20, 30 years, how could we do that and protect what is best about El Paso County? That's a challenge. That's what we're trying to get out ahead of. So, anybody want to make any comments more about environmental or sustainable best practices? No? But I agree with your comments. You're exactly right. There's a better way to do things, and you got to start doing things the better way. So, all right, next one is resilience. This is the last one, right? So resiliency, we said it'd be about 90 minutes. Look at it, we're right at 90 minutes. We're not done yet, though. The next one is resiliency and hazard mitigation. And it's funny, things have really begun to change with regard to this. You have Katrina, Hurricane Ike, Superstorm Sandy. We've worked in all these places. Resiliency and hazard mitigation planning is coming way, 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 way up. And the idea of simply being able to recover quickly after an event or an emergency has spun into, can we weather it a little bit better on the front end, not just focus on recovering better after it happens. So can we ride it out better so we have less recovery to do after? So resiliency and hazard mitigation is a big deal. There are organizations and divisions within the county that focus solely on that. We want to make sure we incorporate that into the plan. And resiliency can also go to economies. Look at Detroit, look at Flint, look at a lot of the salt states in the Midwest. They had a singular economy, one industry. And when it went south, devastated those cities. Nobody had jobs. The economy tanked, quality of life disappeared, people fled. There was no resiliency economically. Not only environmentally, economically, they were not a resilient community. So resiliency and economy, again, 3, 4s, and 5s across the board for these. Nobody ranked it as a 1 or a 2. And again, there are professionals whose job is solely charged with safeguarding resiliency and hazard mitigation for the county. It's what they do. So we want to plan for that. And a lot of this goes to development in the wrong place. All right? There is a reason why when we do zoning across the country, a lot of people, there's always the person in the audience that says, hey, we shouldn't even have a zoning ordinance. They don't have zoning in Houston. I think I heard that in every city I've ever worked in. Well, when they had the weather that they had, because they had development in places they should never have had development, it got devastated. And somebody went back and said, they did sort of a cursory zoning analysis and said, if things were generally where they should be, even loosely based on normal zoning, a lot of this never would have happened. So zoning isn't always the enemy. It can keep development out of areas where it should not be otherwise, right?
I lived there, trust me, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, see? So a lot of resiliency, again, is can we develop more wisely so if a natural event takes place, we're not wiping out something we just put in a place it never should have been to begin with. All right? So rank in order of importance some of these resiliency and hazard mitigation themes. Prioritize hazard mitigation as growth and development occurs. Continue to support planning efforts and best practices to ensure community resiliency. And continue to coordinate communication and activity among Office of Emergency Management, that's the one they have now, emergency service providers, military installations to improve response and recovery to natural hazards and emergencies. Again, it is something that there are several people in the county specifically charged with this task. But a lot of people would tell you building in the floodplain, building in the floodway in a lot of coastal areas or lake areas or along Mississippi River, a lot of that development shouldn't happen, and now the federal government is buying out homes to get them out of areas they never should have been to begin with. Some of the fires in California, homes are in areas that maybe they shouldn't be. A lot of the people on the East Coast who do a lot of work on the East Coast, a lot of this area is in sea level rise. Even if it goes up a little bit, huge areas are going to be wiped out. So is there a way to prevent things from going into an area that is so pristine like El Paso County? Are there areas where we should say, you just shouldn't develop there because something could happen and that's not the place to be? So continue to support planning efforts and best practices to ensure community resilience is the number one. All of these are important. Yes, sir.
That a lot of the hazards we create ourselves.
Absolutely.
By not having roads.
Right.
Not having roads that are adequate for us to evacuate
Right.
when we need to. You should have been here during the Black Forest fires. Anybody who went through that and got backed up in that, it was absolutely something.
Brutal, yeah.
So, yeah, that, again, that's tied up with allowing, runaway development without having the right infrastructure in place, without having those east-west arteries
Right.
taken care of. I mean, this is, we're inflicting wounds
Right.
in the future right now.
Right. And it also goes back, I'm glad you brought that up, it also goes back to some of the earlier comments about providing a roadway network connecting all areas of the county. It doesn't mean we're going to put in a block grid everywhere, but in a snow event or a fire event, whatever, can we get people in or out of an area we have to get them in and out of? So it's not about building a whole bunch of new roads, but specific few and key locations or making them the right width or cleared off in certain areas. So it's making sure that people can be gotten to when they need to be gotten to is exactly right. All right, so we're going to go to the last thing here, which is this. And again, we say we'd be about an hour and a half, 2 hours, or right on time. So we've had a lot of conversation now about different areas and themes: economic development, housing, land use, infrastructure, environmental sustainability, the natural environment, a lot of community health. But after we've talked about all of these different things, after we've talked about all these different issues, somebody put eater. You can type it. You can undo it. Okay. So we have chicken in St. Louis, Missouri. We have eater in El Paso, Texas. So again, based off of everything we've had as a group, and from not what I've said, but what you've heard your neighbors said and voted on, what do you think now is the most important topic discussed this evening out of everything we've discussed? Type that word in there. Type your own, or you can vote for one. Yeah, right. Pardon? No. And I grew up in Michigan, right on Lake Michigan. And I lived in Arizona for several years as a young adult. And I knew that there were plans going back 40, 50 years to divert water from the Great Lakes out to like Colorado and Arizona and stuff if water got real bad. And thank God for Canada, because there's a Great Lakes Treaty. First of all, it's like 85% of the U.S.'s fresh water supplies in the Great Lakes Basin. But there's 8 Great Lakes states and Canada have signed a treaty where you can't divert water out of the Great Lakes Basin. So, because otherwise, we could very well be getting water pumped out of the Great Lakes. So water is a crucial resource. Yeah.
While we're waiting for Holly, I just wanted to thank you. I think
Oh.
you did a terrific job.
Oh, thanks.
Moderating the discussion tonight, leading it. I think this is really a very useful exercise. I wish we had more of them. I wish this event had been scheduled at some time other than the most difficult time to schedule anything
Right.
in the whole year between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
It's tough.
But at any rate, good job. Thank
I-
you very much for the opportunity.
I appreciate that comment very much. I really do. Like I said, we've engaged about 3,600 people over the last 6-7 months. We'll be doing this again for several more months. We'll have several more opportunities for engagement and interactive opportunities. Thanks for, I don't know which camera to look in. Thanks for everybody at home who's been, Grace and others who have been participating. The reason we wanted to do this with Facebook Live is because we knew we were canvassing such a humongous area that we wanted people to afford them the ability to participate online. So again, environment, water, economics, collaboration, conservation, planning in general, sustainability, these are all spot on. So again, understand that and please know that as we've done a lot of outreach, we've done a lot of research. There's a thing called an existing conditions report. It's a 11 by 17 massive document, PDF. You can view it on the county's website. You can email responses back. You can download it, you can print it, you can view it online, whatever you'd like. It's like sort of a data atlas of existing conditions and a summary of all the outreach we conducted over the last several months. So if you want to hear what 3,600 of your neighbors have said, look at that report online, the existing conditions report. That's right. I'm presenting it to the board tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. It'll be posted on the website immediately after the county meeting.
Shortly after.
Shortly after, right.
We also have our State of the Region
right.
address tomorrow, so give me a couple hours to do that. It will be up there by tomorrow afternoon.
But we wanted the county board to see it before it goes to everybody. But again, we are now entering the phase where we're going to start crafting the plan. Goals, objectives, vision, recommendations over a broad list of categories. So as we develop ideas, as they become available, as we host other events, please come out, bring a friend, and this plan has to be reflective of what you tell us, not the other way around. You're never going to get everybody to agree on everything. It's impossible, but the more we can make this reflective of your values, the more successful this plan will be over time. So thank you so much for coming out this evening. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And turn in your papers if you've got them.